Recently I made a video where I told you about a problem that I had with my BambuLabs Carbon X1's AMS system and the sneaky way that I went about trying to solve it, not just to get this fixed, but to also see how they treat their paying customers. That video has garnered a lot of attention, a lot of responses. One of my best videos of all time, which is unusual because a couple of videos before that I criticized Creality and people's responses to that were meh, but Bambu, boy, people sure want to talk about them. And if I were any sort of decent YouTube content creator, my next follow-up video to that would have been 10 ways that BambuLabs has screwed the pooch. But there has been a major development in this that changes everything that happens and has shown me that it turns out I was wrong about BambuLabs. Hey everybody, it's Joe the 3D printing professor, and if you're new to 3D printing or just want something new to do with 3D printing, you're in the right place. I hope that you'll stick around and maybe even come and join me on my Discord, where I have a talented group of people who are doing amazing things with 3D printing and helping each other do amazing things too. I hope to see you there. So just to review, I was having trouble with my AMS system. Instead of feeding filament, it was eating filament, chewing notches into the side of it. And it was a problem that I had seen in Joel Telling's video as well. It looked very similar. But of course, when Joel Telling goes to Bambu and says, hey, I'm having trouble with my AMS system. In fact, I'm having trouble with my 4 AMS systems. Bambu's response to him is here's 4 new AMS systems. Which is fair, it's Joel Telling. But I wanted to see how they would respond to a paying customer. So instead of contacting them as the 3D printing professor, I contacted them through my alt email account, told them what was going on, asked them what to do, and to their credit, they did a really good job of asking questions and helping me through it and helping me identify the problem. And to their credit, the only thing that I would count as a misstep in this whole process was that they complained a little bit too vehemently about the Hydra upgrade that I had done to my AMS. Now, that's not to say that it was a perfect customer service experience. Yes, I had to be persistent. Yes, it was slow and there was a lot of back and forth. But all of that is really standard for most customer service experiences that I have had. And like I said, their documentation when they ask you to do something is amazing. However, they did dial into the problem, and as they were getting ready to send me a replacement part, that's when they found out who I was, and all of a sudden the conversation changed. And this is one thing that the people in my comment section of that video have been complaining about a lot. And you know what? Totally fair. A lot of people were saying, well, why can't they treat, their paying customers the way that they treat people with a larger audience? And, I do want to speak to that for just 1 second. Because whenever you're a paying customer, you're going through customer support. But whenever I'm talking to them, I'm going through marketing. And marketing is a different budget with different plans and ideas. The point of marketing is to generate more sales, and they're going to do whatever it takes to do that. The point of customer service is to take care of their paying customers. And yes, as much as I would love everybody to get the red carpet treatment, that's not always possible. And the thing about working with customer support, any customer support, is you got to remember that the people on the other end are people. And you're probably not the only person that they're working with. They've probably got 5, 10, 20, maybe 100 different customer support requests that they're going through one at a time to try and help. And they're trying to get as much information as they can, but they also have at their hands a lot more information specific about the machine. So trust them. When they ask you to do something, don't go, I've already done that. I already know how that's going to go. No, do it. Go through the steps, even if you think it's repetitive. If you think that they're asking you something that you already know, that you've already told them, don't go, hey, you're not paying attention. I've already told you. You're only one of maybe 100 people that they're talking to. Be patient with them. Say, I did already tell you this, but here's the information. Can we work with this? They need to work with you one step at a time. You need to work with them one step at a time. Treat them like people. Be nice to them because they will get you through this if you are patient and sometimes persistent with them. Customer service people are people too. Part of the reason why customer service is the way that it is because People are the worst. I'll give you an example. A little while ago, BambuLabs had a part and they were sending out replacements to people. Now, the paying customers, that's fine. But there were people who had not bought BambuLabs 3D printers that thought that all they needed to do was find somebody with a picture of the problem, send it into BambuLabs and get the support from them and get a free part without ever buying the 3D printer. They were just looking for free stuff and they were willing to lie and cheat and steal to get it. This is why customer service has to be super careful, because they don't know if they're dealing with a paying customer or somebody who's trying to fleece them. And that is really annoying, really frustrating, and quite frankly, I kind of side with BambuLabs on this one in having to do it. If people weren't being such jerks, it wouldn't be so bad for the rest of us. So continuing on with the story, after they found out who I was, they sent me a whole new AMS system, and that AMS system was dead on arrival. And again, to their credit, we found that out because they had a fantastic wiki page that showed how to do the wire traces. Honestly, whoever's doing their documentation, good job. I had never done wire traces before, but now I have, and I found out that the motherboard on that new AMS was kaput. So they said, you know what, screw it, have a whole new X1 combo with AMS and you'll get it all taken care of. But that wasn't really satisfying for me because I never did find out what was wrong with this original AMS system. That's where things were left off at the end of the last video. But like I said, that last video got a lot of attention and BambuLabs was definitely interested in talking to me after that point. But to their credit, they didn't want me to change my story. They didn't want to control the narrative. The only thing that they wanted me to say was, well, they told me, Joe, you forgot to mention that when you bought the brand new first stage feeders to try and fix these ones, thinking that the first stage feeders were the parts that had worn out, there is a part of that page that says, if you've got an old style motherboard, that you may have to replace the motherboard. And here's the wiki page to go about finding that out. And yes, it absolutely was on there when I bought these. It was just something that I didn't think to put into that video. But no, Bambu was like, no, please tell people that we have already documented this and we know that this is an issue and we want other people to know that it's the issue. That's all. That's all that they wanted me to tell you guys. And so, well, there you go. Now, what was going on with these new first stage feeders was that when I installed them, they would reverse the filament out instead of pulling the filament in when it was supposed to. And that's what I never got resolved. I never did get the new motherboard in here to find out if I could get them all feeding the same direction. Theoretically, a new motherboard will take the old feeders and the new feeders and use them just fine. And so I thought, since I had them on the line already, I said, well, guys, could we go forward? Could you send me the motherboard so that I can try to install it on my AMS and see if it would work? And they said, sure. Now, this issue with an old motherboard that doesn't work with the new feeders is actually something that doesn't affect very many people. Only Kickstarter backers even have to think about this, and supposedly there were only about 2,000 units out in the wild at all, and they've already fixed or upgraded about 1,000 of them. So really there's only 1,000 BambuLabs users who even have to deal with this, meaning chances are you don't have to deal with this. But if you're curious, if you want to know if you need to upgrade your motherboard, like I said, it's on the purchase page for these, the link to the wiki that tells you all about how to do it. And it's, well, admittedly, it's kind of a pain, but it's all documented there so that you can do that. In my case, though, it got weirder as we went on. So I got the new motherboard, and the first thing I did was put everything back to the way that it was. All of the old feeders, my old feeders have gray gears, none of the new feeders with the yellow gears. And then I would try to do a test print, just a 4-color test print, a couple hundred layers with 4 colors per layer to change. And the print did not get anywhere. Not 10 layers in, and I was seeing problems. And you can see here that the color that I had loaded in slot 1 from the left here was definitely getting chewed on the most out of all of them. But the weird thing was, all the other ones were also seeing problems. And I got to thinking, man, maybe all of my first stage feeders are at the end of their life and are going to need to be replaced. But I wanted to press on, and so I started by putting one of the new feeders, well, two of the new feeders, into two of the slots here, and then to try to do a 3D print with the old board. Sure enough, I saw the same problem. Couldn't load the filament because it pulled out instead of pushing in. So then I installed the new motherboard, but I kept the old first stage feeders in there and the new first stage feeders in there. We had two of each kind, and this time the new first stage feeders loaded perfectly and the old first stage feeders went in reverse. While installing the new mainboard, I noticed that there were a number of differences from the old mainboard in my AMS. The old one of these pin connectors was a 6-pin connector, but on the new board, it's a 5-pin connector, meaning that the cable that I had wouldn't fit into it, and that cable is the one that ran out to the back of the case to the interface that you plug into, and of course that one also had a 6-pin connector in it. So the board, the cable that connects it to the back, and the connector in the back all needed to be replaced on mine. Fortunately, I had the dead on arrival AMS system that I could strip for parts. So I got the right cable and the right part out, and I contacted my contact at BambuLabs and said, hey, by the way, I noticed this pin connector is different, and in the future you might want to think about sending these out with people. And their response was, we've done this already to a lot of people. None of them needed that. What is going on? They were getting super confused. Now, at this point, like I said, I had pretty much decided that all of my first stage feeders were going to be a problem and needed to be replaced. So I got rid of the old first stage feeders and put all 4 new first stage feeders in here and ran another test print. And that test print only got about 10 layers in as well before it also failed dramatically. Wait, hold on for a second here. At this point, I've replaced the motherboard, I've replaced all the first stage feeders, I've even replaced the connector in the back and the cable going to it. The only part of the original AMS system still in here was the second stage feeder, the internal hub that takes all 4 of those feeders and feeds it into the one outside part. That's the only part left, and there's no way that that could have been the problem. That part's supposed to be rugged. That part's supposed to last. That part would have been super easy to change at the beginning if I had known that it was the problem. I still had the AMS that I was stripping for parts, so I took out its second stage hub feeder. I put it in the AMS system. I ran a 4-color test print, 100 layers, 4 color changes per layer, over 400 changes, and it printed successfully without a problem. It wasn't any of the first stage feeders. I could have just changed this one part. I would have been fine the whole time. Why am I an idiot? But there was still this lingering confusion about why my feeders were acting the way that they were. So BambuLabs asked me to do one more thing. They asked me to put one of the old stage feeders in the 3rd slot. Don't know why, but apparently doing that test was the information that they needed. I put it there. Sure enough, it was feeding backwards, and they said, Joe, we figured out your problem. You don't have an old style Kickstarter AMS that needs to swap out the motherboard. You have a pre-Kickstarter AMS system. You have one of our prototypes, and we don't know how you got it because you shouldn't have that piece right there. None of our documentation works. None of the answers that we have works for it because we changed so much from that early prototype. Wow. Now, on the one hand, it's super cool that I've got like a pre-Kickstarter super rare AMS unit. I guess I don't anymore now that I've changed out every single part of it. But on the other hand, me trying to pretend I'm a paying customer and going through regular customer support was never going to get this problem solved. I was generating a new problem by not going through the regular channels. The correct answer to having an AMS unit this old is to swap it out and give them a new one. Get them up to date. Don't put out the prototype ones, which is exactly what they did once they knew who I was. They didn't maybe know why they were doing that, but that was the correct solution. And I got in the way of doing that, doing this the way that I did. In other words, this whole problem that I had with customer support was entirely my fault. Now, again, to Bambu's credit, they want to take some of the blame for what was going on. There was some bad communication going on. There were things about their customer support that they admit could have been done better and that they are working on to do better. They did also confide to me that they get a lot of customer support requests and they don't have a lot of staff to meet those requests, which means that, yeah, they have more help that they need to get out than they have help to give it to you guys. And they are trying to onboard more people, but it takes time to get them trained. In other words, they're doing the best that they can, but they admit that there are places that it could be better. And while I think that it is noble for them to say that, and while I appreciate them saying that, the fact of the matter is, I screwed this up. I should not have gone about it the way that I did. I was creating problems and then making a video telling everybody, oh, look, they can't even solve my... No. They couldn't have, because it was not their problem to solve. Now, maybe, yeah, some people have suggested maybe I could swap the wires on the motors and they'd go the right direction, and I could use these old first stage feeders in the new system and they would work just fine. But at this point, I have 4 all new first stage feeders. I have an all new second stage hub feeder. I have a new motherboard. I have a whole new AMS and it's working just fine. So at this point, I brought up a question of longevity in the last video. I didn't know how long these units were going to last, and the truth is, we still don't know, because my experience of having it fall apart after a year is only indicative of what happens to the prototype units. The units that were sent out to backers and paying customers, well, that's an entirely different question, an entirely different game. Quite frankly, the clock has been restarted now so that we can find out how long these machines will last. And again, I want to emphasize that while I was in Bambu Support's environment, it was top notch. Some of the best support that I have ever seen or used with any manufacturer. Perfect? No, but amazing. And the fact that they have documented everything that they want you to do, that they have step-by-step instructions with pictures, and they will just send you a link and say, well, do these, get back to us and let us know how it goes. There are not many manufacturers who have put in that much time and effort to make it easy for you to follow through and do it. And that, I think, is definitely praiseworthy. But that's it for this video. I want to thank you again very much for watching and remind you that you are a child of God, so you're special to me. And, you know, be nice to your customer service representatives. They're people too, and they're just trying to do their best. So work with them, and hopefully we can all be in a better place. Thanks very much for watching.